Hello, beautiful soul family and friends. Happy 2022. I didn't know exactly when I was going to come back. Originally, I was going to take a 2 week break until the first week of January. But as you know, the first week of January came and went, and we are in the second week. I am currently recording this on Monday, January 10th, 2022. And I was like, maybe I'll wait until Mercury goes direct on February 3rd. But then I had all of these amazing insights and things that I wanted to share. So I might just pop on for this week and then take the 2 weeks, 3 weeks during Mercury retrograde, and then come back when Mercury goes direct. But I wanted to share a bunch of things. So I have my cup of cacao here and a bunch of notes and special magical tools. So if you want to take notes, if you want to jot down some dates, I am going to ask you some journal prompts or just prompts for you to contemplate as we talk. And also, I wanted to say that my friends at the Cacao Laboratory, they are offering my community a 15% discount. As you can see, if you're watching the YouTube version, I am drinking cacao right now. Um, and I will link actually for Florencia Friedman's, who is the co-founder of Cacao Lab, her episode down in the description box or down in the show notes if you're listening to the podcast portion of this. Cacao is a plant medicine. It is a sacred fruit from Mesoamerica, and it helps me personally to open up my heart space and to feel grounded because cacao is a fruit that comes from a tree, very, very ancient trees, actually. This specific cacao comes from a farm in Ecuador, and it just helps me as somebody who has a lot of fire and air placements. My um my Mercury is in Pisces, my moon and Venus and Mars are in air signs. So I feel like I have like multiple tabs open in my mind at any time. And if you have listened to me before, you know I'll go off in tangents and I'll start bringing up anecdotal stories or symbolism or myth. And this helps me to stay grounded and ground my messages down to this 3D physical plane. So I usually drink cacao when I am doing my channeling work, when I'm helping clients, when I speak on my podcasts, but also it's just a beautiful ritual that I do for myself where I set time aside to connect to my spiritual practice and to just feel like I'm in the present moment and that infinite time space continuum that is the present moment. So, if you want to try cacao, if you want to get a 15% discount, the code is AWAKEN. And I will obviously leave all that information in the show notes so that you can take advantage of that. And before we begin, I actually wanted to make two other announcements. The Work Podcast, which is another podcast that I co host with my dear sister, Brittany Simone. And our last episode, we had on Soraya Wilson, who is a teacher of the class. The class is a movement exercise that was founded in New York City, but now they've moved their platform digitally. And it's just a cathartic movement exercise to really get into your body. And I am such a proponent of this because we talk a lot about astrology as above, so below, and we talk a lot about these concepts. But to me, it doesn't become real unless it's integrated. And sometimes we experience things that are psychosomatic, like emotions can come up that don't have a word, or you won't understand like what is moving through your body. And doing the class and moving through your body, I also practice yoga. That's another beautiful form of movement, the asanas, to help you integrate all that you've learned. It's really that idea of like getting all of the the content from your mind into your body, moving it through, to help you really take inspired action and intentional action in this lifetime, in this physical lifetime, because we are three-dimensional. We are the mind, we are the body, and we are the soul. And we can't just focus on one aspect of ourselves. We can't just focus on the mind and learning things. We have to integrate it into our body, our physical form, and then we have to take action. And that's those three things are so important, because it's one thing to listen to this podcast and it's one thing to listen to the work podcast. All of that content is stored in your head, but then what do you do with that? And that is why we called it the work, because it's not just listening, it's unlearning, it's learning, and it's also taking right action. And a lot of times, a lot of people will have intentions for their life, but sometimes people's intentions can do unconscious harm to others, and that is what we are in the business of doing here through Awaken and Align and through the Work podcast, is to have more awareness and to ask the important questions of ourselves of why do we do certain things? Why do we feel this way? Why do we think this way? And also, how can we change that going forward? So, if you are interested in trying the class supported that episode and they are offering a 1 month free trial. And I will also link all of that. But you could also go on the Work podcast and listen to that episode. Hey, why not listen to all the seasons? There's 2 seasons so far. And you can try the class. And as you're listening to the work and maybe even listening to this podcast, Awaken and Align, you can allow yourself then to integrate it through that movement practice. So that's number 2. Number 3 is that we are back with the Rooted Reiki Circles. Well, it was more like I put a little pause on that during Mercury retrograde last June because I was just so overwhelmed with everything that was going on. But they're back this month. And our next circle is January 23rd. It's a Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. It's virtual. It's through a sliding scale, and the minimum to get the registration, to book your registration, is $5 or anything else you want to donate, and 100% of the proceeds go to a donation, yes, to a charity that we choose. And this month we chose Heart of Dinner, which is a beautiful organization that was founded in New York City. This organization creates beautiful, locally sourced meals for the East Asian community, the elders in downtown New York City. I'm not sure if it's just downtown New York City anymore, or if it's all over New York City, but they also make handmade illustrated cards in their own language, which I think is just so beautiful. And I just fell in love with the organization and what they do. The two founders are two Asian partners in life. And I just really love giving back in that way. And it's this like circle of life where we as practitioners get to do our dharma by giving back to the collective in healing and giving Reiki. And then they donate money in an energetic exchange to this cause, this charity that we pick every month. So it is this beautiful like gift economy that we circulate the money and we circulate our gifts with each other. And it's about an hour and a half. And this month, I'm so excited. The sound healing will be provided by my co host on the Work podcast and dear friend and sister, Brittany Simone. So it's going to be 30 minutes of sound healing and Reiki. All you have to do is receive. And there is like a bit of sharing if you want to, and speaking, and it's just a beautiful community for us to get together. So if you're interested in that, I will also include all the details there. But yeah, so those are the announcements. But I just wanted to also say that I'm again from my last episode of 2021. I'm just so grateful that I get to do this and that I get to share all of the things that I've learned through studying and through just my life experiences, and get to um, share my voice. And that's very North Node and Taurus. The Taurus rules the throat. But see, I'm already going off topic because I wrote down on this list the order of things I wanted to talk about, but I'm already going off topic. But I just wanted to share a little bit about what's been going on with my personal life. If you heard that episode, it was the last episode where I talked about why I was taking a creative pause, why I was taking a little bit of a break. And I'm not necessarily not on the break still, but I felt that I wanted to share before Mercury goes into retrograde in 4 days time from when I'm speaking right now, but it will be already in retrograde probably by the time you hear this. Um, so I am currently writing a book, which is so interesting how it's even hard for me to even share that with people. Obviously, I've shared this with my closest inner circle, and believe it or not, I'm a pretty private person. I don't share my feelings. I don't share my personal life unless it's something that I feel I've already either like gone through, or I've like taken enough space and time to share it. Because when I'm going through something, I really do internalize everything, and I go into this like hermit mode where I have to be alone and I have to process everything on my own. Um, which I don't necessarily think like if you were born with those energies and those traits that you have to change that. But I do believe in also sharing in the moment to moment the things that I'm going through, just so that you know that I'm also a student, I'm a seeker, I seek the truth above and beyond what's convenient, above and beyond what's the status quo, which has gotten me into trouble several times. But I also want to make sure that I'm conveying this message that when you look at all of my social media platforms, when you listen to me, you know that I am also human. I am also going through these transits. I'm going through this pandemic just as anybody else. I do tend to lean more on the positive, optimistic side because I do have the capability to zoom out and see the bigger picture, and I do believe that we um, have spiritual gifts, and I have to own the fact that I do, and that I do see through different timelines, and I do think that that's a gift. So I do believe that I do see a possibility of things getting better, and I do see that, and I feel it so deeply in my cellular being. But in order for us to get there, there's going to be a lot of need for the ability to be multidimensional and integrate our spiritual being with our humanness. And I really believe that Jupiter in Pisces is going to support us in that if you choose the higher expression of Jupiter in Pisces. There is obviously a shadow side, which I've experienced. I'm sure most of you experienced, which is escapism, which is addiction. That's more Neptune in Pisces, but there is like a wanting to escape reality with Jupiter in Pisces. But if you tap into your spiritual, divine gifts, then you will be able to use your gifts in order to help heal this current timeline that we've, for some reason, decided to all choose together. But that's another story for another day. Um, so, so I wanted to take time to really get back to my own purpose, my own center, my own filling up my own cup. And also, I just needed time to integrate everything that has happened from 2020 to 2021, because 2020, I really felt like I was in the survival mode of shifting my business from being a one-on-one face-to-face practice and having events on in person, and I've spoken a lot about that on this podcast before. to then shifting everything to be online, which, hindsight is 2020, and looking back, all of that was such a big gift for me. And also, my nervous system thrives on chaos. And it's something that I really had to look into even during Capricorn season, because my nervous system thrives on erratic energy. It thrives on adrenaline, and that's a response to trauma. That's also a response to being in environments where it made me feel alive, it made me feel important, and it made me feel that I had some kind of role in this bigger picture. And I'm pretty sure I said this on the last podcast too, but I definitely said this in the moon circles, which I will make another announcement about that. Is that I had such a distorted view of Capricorn energy, and also the way in which I was activating that was just unhealthy, which was linking my sense of worth to my sense of productivity and needing that validation from the external environment to make me feel like I was worth being here. So I really needed to heal that, and I really needed to stop everything. And I'm also a very extreme person. Like when I first tried quitting smoking, yes, I did smoke for a long time. I just quit cold turkey. When I really decided to cut down on my drinking, it was gradual, but then one day I just was like, I'm just done with this, and I just stopped. Um, it's like that extreme, right? For me, myself, and I have a really hard time being in the middle, in balanced, because I just never felt the balance in my environment, the balance of so many things that I've like gone through in my life. As you can tell by my voice, and if you're watching the video, I'm already getting like activated within myself just sharing this, but I know that um, emotions are such a powerful thing, and I want to be able for you to see that side of me and not come off as like I have everything figured out and that I have all the answers, because I fucking don't. So wow, I'm really feeling, just as I'm speaking, I'm really feeling the energy of this upcoming full moon in Cancer, which I will speak about soon. So, I didn't necessarily have a January astrology like prediction, so I'm sorry about that. But hopefully, me speaking to you here will compensate for that, because I am going to talk about the new and the full moons. More specifically, the full moon coming up on January 17th Eastern Time, and also give you enough information to tie you over until possibly February, when the guests start coming back. Um, so going back to what I was saying, I'm writing a book, and I'm almost at the finish line, and I felt weird sharing it for so many different reasons. Um, First of all, I always knew I wanted to write a book, but I had my own limiting beliefs around that, because this is a long story that's actually in my book. But basically, when I moved up to the suburbs from New York City, my first language wasn't English, actually. My first language was Korean, because I grew up with my grandparents, and also um, I grew up with Korean parents. And actually, if there was a second language that I was aware of, it was Spanish, because most of my friends were Dominican, and we lived in a predominantly Dominican neighborhood at that time. And so when we moved up to the suburbs just outside New York City, they had no idea what to do with me, because at that time, so that was like 35 years ago, shit. Um, it was predominantly white, so there weren't that many minorities. Now it's gotten much more diverse, but they put me in ESL. And I was around 6. So they say that a child's personality forms after the age of 7. So I was still molding my personality. So when somebody tells you, especially an authority figure like your teacher, that you're not smart and that you don't know English, it really sticks, it stuck with me. And I didn't realize that until I was writing this book. And I was like, what is all of this fear content that's going through my head? And then there's all sorts of reasons why I wasn't interested in school, but one of the biggest reasons was I was just a social butterfly. I loved socializing. I loved talking. I loved talking to my friends. I also think I wasn't clinically diagnosed with ADHD or like attention deficit disorder, but I feel it's definitely has been a issue with me personally of like focusing, of being able to focus on one thing at a time. Like I said in the beginning, I feel like at any given time I've like multiple tabs open. And that's why grad school was so hard for me, because it was such a lonely process of just sitting there studying and reading for hours and hours at a time. So that's one reason, but also I think because so much was going on in my home life that was just traumatic and just very confusing, that um, school was a way for me to escape that. And it was like I had such a hard time focusing because so much was going on in my home life. And home for me back then was a place that I feared. It was a place that I wanted to run away from, and that speaks to a lot of this Cancerian energy that I will talk about, because Cancer rules the fourth house, and the fourth house is such a psychologically foundational place. It is home, it is your roots, it's your ancestry. It is ruled by the moon, and it talks about like the mother energy, the nurturing energy. And home for me has always been like a place where I was afraid of, and also a place that like I couldn't quite define as like a physical structured home, a place with four walls. Home for me was something that I was always seeking outside of myself, very much like Sagittarian energy of like the hero's journey. I had to travel all around the world to figure out that home was within myself, the heroine's journey, right? And I always associated with it with just like negative feelings, to be quite honest. So I didn't really pay attention in school. So I always thought that I was not smart enough. I wasn't good at English. I wasn't good at grammar. But really, I just didn't, um, I wasn't just like focused. I just didn't think that that was a good use of my time. So anyway, that whole that whole experience when I was younger came up during this process of writing this book, because I was like, well, I don't know how to write. I'm not a good writer. And then it was so the book is about manifestation, but my perspective on manifestation, which is more than just acquiring things, it's more about your spiritual essence here on earth, and like your gifts and what you love to do is the part of which when you find that you just receive automatically. So that's in a nutshell what it's all about. It's believing beyond a shadow of a doubt your gifts, but also healing our belief in lack and co-creating your life with the universe, which is so much deeper than just acquiring things. So I was like, what possibly can I add to the content of manifestation? There's so many manifestation things out there. There's so many more um, people who have bigger followings, who have like a team to help them. They have like a ghostwriter, like all of this stuff started coming out in my head, which were just limiting beliefs and fears. And that is why part of the manifestation journey is to be ready for the things that you're calling in. It's being able to hold the manifestation that you are calling in and being prepared for them, which is, I think, what is happening now with the Venus retrograde. We're going into Mercury retrograde, and those are personal planets. So it's this time of stagnation, if you want to see it that way, or a pause, to be prepared for when all of these planets go direct, from February 3rd to May, which is a golden window, I think, if you want to launch anything, if you want to start anything new. But right now, we are still in the phase where we're being asked to sit still, to really contemplate and ask ourselves, like, what is it that we want? How do we want to spend our energy? So this is the time. If you are driving, that's fine, just contemplate this as you are, or you're walking. But if you do have a journal in hand or anything to write with, ask yourself, um, what is it that you want to create in your life? What is the feeling? What kind of energy do you want to surround yourself with? What are the kind of like moment to moment things that you want to be doing? And that all goes back to intention, right? So I feel like I repeat my intention on all of my platforms, like on a continuous basis, because I want my intention to be very clear to everybody. Like, why am I sharing? Why am I talking about all these things? Because sometimes I share things that are more about awareness, like this is what's going on in our reality. This is what we have to pay attention to, because you can't change what you don't know. And then sometimes my content is more like dreamy, like let's manifest, let's like step into a different vibration. And then sometimes my content is like, wow, we're really stuck and we need to shift the energy. So, um, unfortunately, we live in a society right now that really thrives, the algorithm thrives on like 15-second sound bites and sound videos, or sound videos. Does that even make any sense? And it's getting shorter and shorter because everyone's attention span is so short, which is why I believe that having this very slow, intentional pace of life, very Capricorn, is necessary, because when you're moving too fast, you miss all of the content that is available to you. And that's very much the energy that I was coming from. I was coming from a very runner energy, a fear, flight or flight energy, a very adrenaline, cortisol. I don't want to sit still because I don't want to feel the pain and the grief that I've been through kind of energy. And everyone is at a different stage of their healing journey. Everyone is going to be at a different point, and then go back to certain points, because healing is not linear. It's cyclical. It's a spiral. And also healing, when I say that word, because I do feel like it's important to name and describe the words that I'm using. Healing doesn't mean just like gloom and doom and looking at my shadows and doing like some excavation of my subconscious psyche. Healing to me means getting back to being well again, wellness. I shared this on the Work Podcast Instagram, but the word wealth, the etymology of that word comes from wheel, which is a Germanic, Old English word, and wheel is means wealth, and well-being, and it's a synonym from health. So health, everybody thinks of just their body and being healthy, but I believe that health is everything. It's our entire astrological chart. It's literally every aspect of our lives. It's health of our mind, of our mental capacity, of our emotional body, our spiritual body, our physical health, obviously, first and foremost, because we are the body, but then we are also not the body, and our financial health. That's why it's called financial well being, our relationship well being, our legacy that we want to leave on this earth, and also, like, just again, like, it's the whole astrological wheel, all 12 houses that really speak to health. And our health in all aspects of our life leads to our wealth and well being. They're all interconnected, wellness. Um, and so I feel it's very important to understand these concepts, because I think these words get thrown around a lot and they get distorted, and then you're like, wait, what are we talking about? Like, same thing with awakening, right? Like, that term gets thrown around so much, and I feel like I've had to define so many times, because this whole podcast and platform is called Awaken and Align. And really, again, just to redefine, awaken to me means that you uncover the layers of who you truly are. And who you truly are is so multidimensional. You are a spiritual being in human form. You have a purpose, you have a reason to be here. um, and it's you just being here. It's not what you do, it's not what you do for a living, how you make money. It's the gifts that you came here with, and how you share that with your world is, I believe, where we're going towards in the future. It's like our gifts and what we want to do um, are going to be like compensated for, because right now we still live in a paradigm where it's very limiting. It's very much based in scarcity and lack and this capitalistic structure. And, we are entering our first Pluto return. I think it's on February 20th of this year. If you're listening to this in a different year, this is 2022, the first one at 27 degrees of Capricorn, where the transiting Pluto is returning back to the same exact point where the US Sibley chart, which is July 4th, 1776, the US Constitution in Philadelphia. So that's what I'm talking about. And we are in the late stages of capitalism. And if you listen to the Work podcast, we are having a astrologer talk about that in the context of colonization and doing that kind of work. But Pluto is the planet of revealing, the underworld and the shadows. And it's in Capricorn right now. Venus is in retrograde in Capricorn. And Mars is going to enter Capricorn on the 24th of this month. And then Mercury is going to, right now it's in Aquarius, it's going to retrograde, go back to Capricorn, and come back to Aquarius. So there's a lot of content there. There's a lot of action in your Capricorn house. And Capricorn, to me, is about structure, it's about responsibility and discipline. And it is this idea of healing our individual and collective feeling around Capricorn energy. And I said that in the beginning when I was sharing about why I decided to take some time off, because I wanted to heal my relationship with Capricorn energy. I have my South Node in Capricorn. Um, so I really believe that that's kind of like the journey I've been going on in this last month during Capricorn season. We still have about 9 days left until the sun goes into Aquarius. So, yeah, I think that wherever you have Capricorn, specifically in your natal chart, is where you're having to rethink the structure around your life. So for me and the US the US chart, we have the same configuration where it's in our second house. So if I've had to look at not allowing my level of productivity and my level of doing and being capitalistic, Capricorn, to dictate my sense of worth. And I've had to really check my value system, how I value myself, my self worth, my confidence, my relationship around money, healing my relationship with lack and scarcity. And there's a lot of stuff in the Capricorn, my second house, which is in Capricorn, which is natally traditionally a Taurus house. And part of me healing that story is to rest, is to not do less, but redefine what doing means to me. Because for me, I've associated my level of productivity, my level of like doing, to being needed and being necessary in the greater context of humanity. And going back to what I was saying is, we are just worthy of just being here, just being ourselves. And like, we don't need to prove ourselves. We don't need to have validation from other people. We don't need to like basically attach our worth to our external reality. And when I'm saying that, everyone will agree, yes, but then when you put it into practice and when you have to embody that, it's a different story, which is why I believe embodiment work is so important. So, actually, this everything that I just discussed really checks off the first point I wanted to make, which was I wanted to talk about the book and all of my limiting beliefs around that, and how I had to really, as I was writing it, it was so cathartic because I was healing my limiting beliefs around writing this book. And also, I believe that there's some kind of alchemy in holding within yourself what you want to manifest and just sharing it with people who will support your dream and who will inspire you and push you. And I believe everybody that listens to this podcast and everyone that watches the YouTube and everyone that's in my energy field would support me. And I trust that. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. Um, and that's a very important energy that I want to move into 2022 with. It's less about novelty. I love novelty, by the way. I'm a fire sign, so it's less about novelty, it's less about quantity. Because capitalism will make us believe that more is better and that quicker is better. But things like decolonial work and things like healing, there's no quick fix. They take time, and that's okay. Capricorn, time. Um, so I really believe that the energy that I'm moving into is more focusing on how I feel and my intuition versus also like what I see and what I don't see. But feeling into like the energy and the essence that I want to move into to 2022, which is how I came up with this was taking a little time off, and also that's a huge privilege. I do have to mention that. Um, but also time off is like not doing nothing. Time off for me is resting so that I can be intentional about what I create, and also being more mindful of how I spend my energy. And so I also had to reprogram my mind around rest and time off as very, very necessary in the work that I personally do as being a healer and also somebody that holds space for other people. So I would also ask you if you need to do some kind of healing your perceptions or redefining for yourself what time off means to you, and also rest. There's this wonderful, wonderful author, Adrienne Brown. I follow, I believe her pronouns are her, but if they're not, I'm sorry. Um, but she is the author of Pleasure Activism. I'm gonna look it up really quick because I don't want to say anything. Um, yeah, okay, so Adrienne Marie Brown is oh, she's a writer, and she wrote the book Pleasure Activism. And also, there's another account called the Nap Ministry. The Nap Ministry talks about rest as a form of revolution and resistance, and Adrienne Brown talks about pleasure activism as a necessary aspect of activism. Because when you are an activist and when you are in resistance to, you know, the powers that be, the things that you want to change, rest is necessary, because when we are at rest, we are able to tap into our intuition and we are able to create a different reality that we are currently living in. And I never got this until I started forcing myself to do it, because again, like that content in my head would just keep coming back, like, you're not doing anything, you're not doing anything, you're being lazy, blah 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 blah. And I was sitting there like, oh my God, this wiring, this programming is so deep that it's literally making me feel like I'm not worthy and I'm a piece of poop if I don't do something. And that is why I feel self inquiry and contemplation is so important. Most spiritual practices will make you do that because you have to question like why you're stuck in this loop. So for me, I had to like intentionally set aside time to just sit there and like not do much. And it's like, so the people who listening to this who they like can do this and it's not a problem, are probably listening to me like what. But again, like I was addicted to this fight or flight energy. I was addicted to chaos energy. I was addicted to like thriving on the adrenaline. That's how I felt like alive. I know that sounds super fucked up, but and that's probably also why I had some addiction issues because I was trying to calm my mind and my body by using substances, but now I have healthier means to do that, but I had to heal my mind but also find ways to um emotionally regulate myself and nervous system regulation, like calming down my body. And breath work helped me to do that. Yoga helped me to do that. Meditation helped me to do that. Being out in nature helped me to do that. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I will post random videos about the sunset and the ocean and nature. It's because of how healing it has been for me, because when I am out there and I'm with nature, it reminds me that we live in an abundant universe and that I can just take my time and that there is no rush. So, I healed my mind through questioning, through contemplation, and then I also helped regulate my nervous system, um, and not needing to be on that like frenetic energy through breath work, through energy work, doing Reiki on myself, and through just different modalities of healing, quite frankly. And that's what spiritual tools and healing modalities really help you is through allowing you to integrate in this physical form. It's not a means to escape reality. I think there is like a huge misconception about what spirituality is. It's for us to be in this reality because this is the reality that we need to heal. Capricorn. So another aspect of Capricorn that I needed to heal was that it's actually a yin, it's a feminine sign, but we associate more with the toxic shadow aspects of Capricorn, which is working hard, climbing the proverbial corporate ladder, and being more of like the daddy stoic energy. And I think those are more of the shadow aspects of Capricorn, but this is actually a very yin season. It's a time for reflection, a time for reception. And this is why I also appreciate winter so much because with the coldness and with everything standing still, and there's no animals out there. They're all hibernating, they're all sleeping, um, and it really helps you if you choose to activate in that energy. It forces you to be still and to ask yourself, like within yourself, like what is it that I need to change the structures within? Because Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign. Cardinal energies activate, they initiate. And Capricorn is our skeletal system. It rules our knees and our structures. So, like, what things do I need to change in my structure in order for me to create the reality that I want to create? So, great. So, we talked about the book, Time Off, Capitalism, Capricorn, and I do associate Capricorn with capitalism and all of us collectively healing that. Um, Now I want to talk about, well, let's talk about the Capricorn Cancer axes since we're on the topic of Capricorn. So we had a new moon in Capricorn on let's see, what was it? January 2nd. So, right after the new year, there was a new moon in Capricorn at 12 degrees. And I noticed a pattern, and astrology really is about noticing patterns. Every new moon since November 4th was at 12 degrees. So, we had the new moon in Scorpio at 12 degrees, the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius at 12 degrees on December 3rd. On January 2nd, which was the one that just passed, was 12 degrees of Capricorn. We're going to have a new moon in Aquarius on 12 degrees of Aquarius on January 31st. And then finally on March 2nd, we're going to have a new moon in Pisces. And then the new moon in Aries kind of starts off a different cycle. So one, two, three, four, five. Five new moons at 12 degrees. And then I looked at the full moons, and we've had full moons at 27 degrees. So back in October 20th, we had the full moon in Aries. On November 19th, we had the solar eclipse in Taurus at, all of these are at 27 degrees. And then we had on December 18th, the full moon in Gemini. And then we're going to have this full moon in Cancer on January 17th at 27 degrees of Cancer. On February 16th, the full moon in Leo. On March 18th, the full moon in Virgo, again at 27 degrees. So it looks like around Libra season until March, which is Aries season, there has been new moons at 12 degrees and full moons at 27 degrees. And I really think that's significant. First of all, 12 degrees is a very feminine sign, and there's 12 zodiac signs. 12 to me is like a completion of a cycle. Also, I don't know why, maybe I do know why, but it reminds me of Jupiter too, because Jupiter takes 12 years to come back to a sign. So we have Jupiter in Pisces right now, and 12 years ago, Jupiter was in Pisces. So think back to 12 years ago and look at the house that Jupiter in Pisces is in, and it'll give you some content about where you are expanding in a very Piscean way back then, to give you hints about, and you probably already feel it already because it's in Pisces now, how you're expanding. And it's going to be more at a spiritual, emotional level, because Pisces is a very yin, feminine, nighttime sign of Jupiter. But also, I recently heard that the Chinese astrology follows the Jupiter cycle, and because there's 12 animals within the Chinese zodiac, and it takes 12 years for an animal to go back to where it was. And this year, on February 1st, is the Lunar New Year, and this year is going to be in the water tiger, which is a very emotional, feminine, watery, lunar sign. And I think to the Wild Unknown tarot deck, which the tiger, the High Priestess card is a tiger, and also in the animal deck, the tiger is a very lunar, feminine energy. And so I associate tigers to be very, um, and when I say feminine, I don't mean like just soft and like receptive, because again, we have to like rethink and reimagine how we think about these words. I think tigers are incredibly fierce and powerful. They are big cats, so um, they are very powerful, empowering animals. And I started looking into the symbolism of tigers, because tiger is the national animal of Korea, and tigers show up in a lot of Korean mythology. But also, Korea used to be the land of the tigers. It used to be all like hundreds and thousands of tigers in Korea until they became, I think they must have been hunted down or extinct. But there's no um, native tigers anymore to Korea. But I'm still learning about the mythology and about the real symbolism of tiger in Korean culture and mythology. But I just thought that was so interesting, because Um, and this is only for me personally, but Jupiter is in my fourth house. What I was saying about roots and ancestry and home and feeling nurtured. And um, that, like, when Jupiter went into Pisces the first time, which was May of 2021, I was really getting into my ancestry and learning about my roots and also my motherland, which is South Korea, well, Korea in general. And then I learned about the tiger and its significations with Korea, and I was like, wow, like for me personally, the tiger feels like it being empowered through my ancestry and knowing my roots and knowing that, like, again, home is within me. And as you all know, I became nomadic in 2017, and during the pandemic, I decided to stay home because I didn't want to be far away from my family. I didn't want to um, be like by myself during a pandemic. So I came back home after being away for 20 years. I left when I was 18 and I came back when I was 38. So exactly 20 years. And so much healing was happening during 2020 to 2021 that, like, again, I tried to explain as it was happening, but now that I'm like looking back, it redefined to me home and that meaning of home, very Cancerian, very fourth house energy. And also how much that being grounded and rooted and that psychological foundation is so important when we also talk about Capricorn, which is the opposite sign. And Capricorn is the 10th house. It's the highest point of our chart. It's our legacy. It's how we want to be seen and how we are known. And without the Cancer, though, without the fourth house, without that intrinsic foundation, that it's really hard to feel secure enough to like shoot for the stars with the Capricorn energy there. So for me, it was like, okay, I've come back here, I've done a lot of healing. I came back to a place where I didn't feel safe and where I wanted to run away from for so long. And so, like, metaphorically, I healed my relationship with my home, my childhood home, but also, like, physically, I feel safe here again, which I never really felt as a child. So it's interesting because, like, I finally feel safe here, but at the same time, I know I have to leave because change and good things don't happen in your comfort zone. So it's almost like I feel grateful that I never felt safe here in the beginning of my life because it propelled me to be more outwardly and, like, seek knowledge beyond just my home, just my zip code. But then at the same time, I never felt safe here. And then now coming back as an adult, I feel safe here and I healed that relationship with my home and my parents and my childhood and my inner child. But now I'm like, okay, but you feel safe, but, like, nothing ever good comes from your comfort zone. So you got to leave at some point. So it's like this whole full circle, very, very like interesting retrograde realization. And 12 years ago, when Jupiter was transiting this area of my life, I moved into an apartment in New York City with my then boyfriend. So it is like this feeling of, like, okay, I think I'm ready to leave the nest again and, like, seek other environments to help me with my growth. I don't know yet. I will keep you all posted because right now obviously, we're still kind of in a pandemonium. But those are just that's just my personal experience, and maybe it'll give you more insight into how you can work with these energies of Jupiter and Pisces. And I think it was during my moon circle where I shared my very spiritual insights about the new Matrix movie, the fourth one. And what I learned is that Matrix in Latin means womb. And that goes back to Cancer energy, which is like the womb, the place where you feel nurtured, the place where you feel safe, the place where you feel like all cozy, like a mother's womb is warm and it's like it gives you all the nutrients, it gives you everything you need. but at some point you have to break free and you have to get outside of your comfort zone in order for something else to change. Cancer is also a cardinal water sign. So, Cancer and Capricorn are both initiative energies of like starting something, taking initiative. So, this full moon in Cancer is opposing the sun in Capricorn, and Capricorn is in pretty much almost a conjunction with Pluto. Um, and it's going to be, I feel, and I can already feel the energy. It's going to be a very, very deep emotional full moon because full moons are already in opposition. The sun is opposite the moon, and it's at 27 degrees, which is, the last degrees of a sign. So there's like a buildup of energy. And also, it's like you're going to have to like be honest with your feelings about something. And it will have something to do with your it will have something to do with your Capricorn Cancer axes, but it's going to be a lot of the stuff that comes up during this Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde, all of these things about the past. And Capricorn is very much associated with the past because it's ruled by Saturn. And it's not lost on me that Mercury is moving from Capricorn to Aquarius and then back to Capricorn. So there is this idea of like rooting down into from our minds, like what we want to happen from the mind to like action, but also reflecting back on the past and looking towards the future, because Capricorn is a very like elder energy. It's a very like past. If you could look at Capricorn in terms of like, if you can look at your past with the eyes of an elder, like taking your experiences, not judging them, and saying, this is what I've learned from my past experiences, and taking the wisdom that you've learned from them towards the future that you want to create. Because Aquarius is very future forward thinking, it's very expansive in nature. And then when it goes back retrograde into Capricorn, it's like, okay, this is like what I'm taking action on. This is how I'm creating different stuff in my structure. And then when it goes direct back into Aquarius, it's like, okay, it's happening. Um, and I think that's very significant because all of the Mercury retrogrades this year do this kind of thing where it first, like, the shadow is in the earth sign, and then it goes retrograde in the air sign, and then it goes back into the earth sign, and then it goes direct back into the air sign. So it's like earth and air, earth and air. And the next one's going to be in Taurus and Gemini. So just keep your eyes out and look at your thoughts and where it's going, and look at what things from your past are coming back for deeper analysis. And again, the best thing you can do is sit still and have awareness around these things, not judging these things, and asking yourself why. So let me just make sure that I'm on track with everything that I wanted to talk about. One last thing that I wanted to say about Capricorn is, well, the Capricorn and Cancer axes and the full moon in Cancer. So I oftentimes say to the people in my moon circle, we usually do some kind of like release ritual on the full moon and some kind of like planting the seed on the new moon. And I always say, like, I invite you to release the things that you no longer need and that you are ready to let go of. And that's like very key, right? Being ready to let go of something, because oftentimes we hold on to things and we're attached to things because we gain something from it. We need it in some way because it's serving a purpose, even though it might be toxic, even though we know that it's not for our best and highest self. We still hold on to it because we haven't figured out what could replace that behavior, that thought pattern, whatever it is, that person, that job. And so be gentle with yourself and ask yourself, why am I holding on to this? What am I gaining from this? What is, maybe it's serving me in some ways and not serving me in other ways, and like, what is it actually covering up that I need to address at a deeper root level. And I love the image of, I couldn't find it. I tried to look for it before I started speaking, but the image of a flower with like very deep roots, like the flower symbolizing Taurus. It's like what people see, like the beauty and like the rose of a Taurus, and then what people don't see is like the Scorpio, the roots, and but the roots are so deep and the roots are so like necessary for the vitality and the health of the rose. So it's really important to get to the root of everything. And it's important to understand like why do you hold on to things? Why can't you release it? And again, coming from a place of non-judgment, um, having Jupiter and Pisces might help with that non-judgment, but like unconditional love of accepting that some things are harder to release than others. So I'll give you an anecdotal example, as I always do. Um, so like I mentioned in the beginning, I have I believe a gift, a spiritual gift. No, I know I do. Stop doubting yourself, Laura. Of being able to see multiple timelines, connecting with spirits, guides, um, I have my Mercury in Pisces and I have my Moon and Venus in Aquarius. Those are very expansive, multidimensional signs. But the downside of that is I feel too much and I get too much from my environment, and I'm just too open. So when I was when I didn't have the tools that I do now to deal with that, I also have a configuration in my chart. My Neptune is square my sun, which also lends to addictive personalities. There's other things in my chart that also say that, but um, there is like a gift, but also a curse when you have special abilities, right? I think every superhero movie depicts this in some way. So my gift is like I'm able to tap into that energy, but then when I didn't have those tools is when I went into some shadowy behaviors because I didn't know how to deal with that. So for example, um and I want to talk more about this maybe like in Pisces season when Jupiter and Neptune are conjunct, because there is also obviously a a caveat in that conjunction where it could be super spiritual, but it could be super like let's all take a bunch of drugs and detach from this physical reality. Um, and but I do want to talk about this now, that I am still working on my own addictive behaviors, specifically with alcohol, because I used it as a way to cope and as a way to numb. And I used to feel really shameful and guilty about that and like make fun of myself and say, what a fucking hot mess she was. And I can't believe I basically blacked out for like 5 years of my life. And I would literally like, there's so many stories that I used to like say for like for fun and joking about myself of like how hungover I used to be and how I used to be a hot mess. And but really I give compassion to that version of me because I didn't have the tools I have now to have dealt with all of the stuff that I was trying to numb from. So in 2019, when I decided to become sober and really look at my dependence on alcohol, is what was I, why did I feel, why did I crave that feeling of feeling buzzed? It wasn't necessarily even drunk, I just liked feeling numb. What was that feeling? And why did I like feeling that way? What was I trying to numb myself from? What was the underlying content under there that I was trying to like avoid feeling for basically my whole life? And when I looked into it, and I'm telling you, like, this work is not easy because you have to visit the past. But again, you have to visit the past, Capricorn, Saturn, in order for you to have awareness of how you came to be, for you to change it. We can't change what we don't understand. We can't change what we don't know. So that work is difficult. Like you have to sit with yourself, take responsibility for yourself and say, what is this? So I looked into it, and it was all of the trauma that I had experienced, all of the breakups, the deaths, the just the simple things that aren't simple, but they still cause pain and grief, that I just kind of like brushed under the surface and just like ran away from my feelings and was like, everything's fine. Meanwhile, nothing is fine. And that's why, like, I do want to say that I am an optimistic person, but toxic positivity is just that, toxic. You have to admit to yourself when it's not okay, when it's shit is not good. And that's something that I had to learn this year, is like admitting to myself that I wasn't okay, and then admitting to other people that I wasn't okay. And I admitted to my family that this past year that I wasn't okay for a really long time, and that, you know, I'm it's interesting because, like, even just speaking to you, like, I feel so connected and alive as I'm speaking, but just last week I felt apathetic. I felt a little depressed. I was like, what is the point of this? Why are we here? It's so much suffering. And being honest with that feeling, though, and giving myself space to grieve and giving myself the space to be honest with my feelings is something that is like just recently I've been able to do because I was honest. But this is what you're being asked to do right now, is to look at the things that you want to release, and you want to also give yourself the space to say, is this something that I'm ready to let go of now? Because I know it's not serving me. So what else can I do to feed me in the way that I need it to feed me, but also not go down this very unhealthy, very unaligned space? So for me, I recognized that I was numbing. Okay, so I need help. So I sought out healers. I sought out people who could hold space for me. I sought out energy healers, and you probably heard all of them. You probably met all of them through my podcast. And I sought out people who understood what I was going through, not because they themselves went through exactly what I went through, but they could understand what it feels like to feel lost and also feel like you're floating out into outer space without being able to see land. That's what Neptune feels like in Pisces. Like, you don't see land and you're like, am I ever going to feel myself again? So that is how I was able to feed this feeling, because also, like, when you're going through the healing process, it's a very lonely process sometimes, because not everybody is on the same journey as you, and not everybody around you is going to understand. So it's really important to find community and people who can hold space for you. Because I felt like a lot of the things I was going through, the only person that really understood it was my sister, because she had gone through the similar, obviously, environment, but she wasn't at the same level of spiritual understanding that I was at that time. And it's not her fault. It was just, we all have different journeys. It was just, I sought out people who could understand where I was coming from, and that need for being seen and feeling validated and feeling safe was something that I have to admit, like, um, that numbness that came out of partying, that numbness that came out of drinking, that numbness of like working a lot and escaping my feelings and traveling, that all gave me a sense of like, I'm worthy, I feel alive, I feel like I'm doing something. But what I wasn't doing was being honest with my feelings and taking the time to grieve, and also feeling safe. So, what helped me, again, reiterating the statement, what helped me feel those things that I was searching for outside of myself was being able to cultivate that feeling inside of myself, which kind of brings this whole conversation full circle, because I love that Zen proverb that there's nothing out there for you. And what that means is, like, stop searching out there. Everything is in here. And we've all heard that from like a spiritual leader or a spiritual text, like, as within, so without, oh, you have all the answers within. And I really believe that, because um because you're the only person that can give you the sense of security that you want, that can love you the kind of love that you need, but also knowing that you have access to an infinite higher power, an infinite being, call it God, goddess, the divine, the universe, spirit, nature, Mother Nature, Gaia, universal consciousness, unconditional love, whatever name you want to name it, that is the energy that runs through all of us, that is us, that runs through everything, that tells the flowers when to bloom, the butterfly when to come out of its cocoon, when the seasons change. There's an intelligence there that knows what to do. Okay, so we got Jupiter and Pisces out there, and I'll speak more about Jupiter and Pisces as we go along because it moves into Aries in May, which is going to be a whole other energy to go through. Um, okay. Oh, I wanted to also go back to the new moons and the full moons, what I was saying about the numerology. So 12, and that like brought me into the whole tangent of Jupiter. 12 is the number of the divine feminine, but also it breaks down to a 3. So for me, 3 is the number of creation, creativity. It's a very fertile, it's a very fertile energy, but it's an unstable energy. So you need to like put more energy into something that will turn into a 4, which is more stable. And then the full moons are at 27 degrees, and 27 reduces to a 9, which is a culmination of a cycle. And 2022 is a 6 year, so it's the 369. And so if you've been experiencing any personal planets or aspects around the 27 degrees, around the full moons, there's a theme there of you completing a cycle. That's what full moons are. And then if you've been having more activations at the 12th degree by the new moons, you're being called to start something new. And everybody will have this because everybody at a certain sign or a certain personal planet or aspect will have things in and around 12 degrees or in and around 27 degrees. So one part of your life is ending or completing a cycle while something is trying to be created in another area of your life. And the 369 is something that I also write about in my book when I talk about signs and synchronicities through numerology, because the universe doesn't speak English. The universe doesn't speak, which thank God, because again, like we all have different meanings for words, but it speaks in terms of symbols and math. And my favorite scientist and thinkers, Nikola Tesla, said that the secrets to the universe can be found in the 369. And everybody thought that Nikola Tesla was a little OCD, a little crazy, because he was so obsessed with these numbers. He would only stay in hotel rooms that had a combination of either 3, 6, or 9, or all three. He would repeat things 3 times, 6 times, 9 times. But I really resonate with numerology. Math was my like best and favorite subject. I was in like the math honors league. I was in like a math club because math to me was the only thing that made sense. There was answers in math versus like philosophy, and like all these things could be interpreted in like a very different way. But math and numerology, it's like very straightforward. There's no like in between. There's no black and white. It's like this is the answer. So I really resonate with math and numerology. And when I look at the 27 degrees and how that reduces to a 9, and then in new moons reduces to a 3, and then this being a 6 year, the 369, something is being created. Um, Obviously you need to take the responsibility within yourself to consciously co-create something. The 3. 6 is the number of the Lovers card. It's about making decisions. It's about coming together, about union. And then 9 is a completion of a cycle. And as you know, there's no such thing as a past, present, or future. Um, it's all happening at the same time. 3 also is past, present, or future. It's the 3D, mind, body, soul. There's so many biblical references to the three, like the Holy Trinity. Um, and then six is the number of um, the Lover's card. It's also the number of yeah, it just looks like a pregnant number, and all of the numbers look kind of round and like soft. Like it looks like it's pregnant. You're like creating something that's being birthed, coming together of energy. And then the nine is something, it's a wise number, has a lot of divine wisdom with the like bigger head than the body. So the 369 I find very significant for this year. Um, and I think about the what is that? Ouroboros, like the snake that eats its own tail, and like the infinite cycle of life, of like life, death, rebirth, and transformation, the circle of life. Like there's so many symbolism around the circle of life, and how nothing is linear, everything is circular, everything comes back to its original form in some way or another. We all go back to source. Death is death is a whole other subject that I hope to talk about in the future, but we shed our physical form. That's the form of death. But even within our own lives, in this specific incarnation, we go through different life, death, rebirth periods. And I think that if you choose to want to change your current reality, you have that opportunity. And this is also what I want to say. The last thing I want to say about letting go and attachment and all of that stuff is we are being called to be multidimensional, and so many of the work podcast guests who have more of a spiritual lens talk about this. Is that is why this time is so critical, because we can, in this present moment at this time, hold different timelines, different realities, different possibilities. So in this specific time, we can be grateful for what is. We can be grateful for everything that is our life. At the same time, we can point out the things that aren't working, and we could say, hey, we can do better. And at the same time, look to the past and understand, like, hey, that's where that started. That was the root of the problem. And now it can inform how we act in the present moment, while at the same time, look to the future and want something different for ourselves. So that's like being able to hold all of that at once. And that's what makes us multidimensional. That's what makes us spiritual beings in human form, is that we have that capability. We have the ability through our perception, through our mind, through all of our spiritual gifts, to do all of that at once. And I want to just give you a personal anecdote, just to give you context, because like I said, like on my platforms, I'll talk a lot about activism and pointing out and bringing awareness to all the things that aren't serving us, all of the shitty things that are happening, right? But at the same time, holding on to a future timeline that is still possible in this timeline, where we can all move towards, where the change and the shift can happen, at the same time feeling grateful for everything that I have and all the privileges that I have, and then also looking back at the past and understanding what happened. And I can do all of that and walk through all of those worlds and translate that into my podcast, into TikTok, into Instagram. And I understand that not everybody can have that level of awareness. And I understand that not everyone has caught up to that level of understanding. And my job, my work on myself is to be patient with people, because everyone learns and unlearns at their own time. But um, my mom, like when I talk to her about these topics, she's always like, what happened to the dreamer Laura? What happened to, like, why did you get so serious? And why are you talking about such negative things? And I was trying to explain to her that in order for us to have a better future, in order for us to shift into this new earth, as Marilu Shin and as Dr. Rocio speak about on the Work podcast and on Awaken and Align, in order for us to step into that timeline, we also have to, at this moment, in this timeline, in this current reality that we've all co created together, to notice the things that aren't working for us, which is the way in which our structures, Capricorn, are not serving us, are not giving us the wellness and the well being that we all deserve. That is our birthright. And again, simultaneously feeling very grateful. I'm super grateful for all of the privileges that I have. I get to work from home. I get to speak to you from my dream board right there, my altar, and also at the same time recognizing like what has happened in my ancestry, in my motherland, but also in my homeland of America. And then also at the same time be very excited for the future. Like I can do that. I've done a lot of educating of myself and spiritual education, healing work, and understanding, like through reading tons of books, that this is all possible and this is all possible now. And what that is going to entail is more and more people having that high level of awareness that we all can tap into, and that that's the thing, like it's hard for me to show up now on social media having these like 15-second sound bites where it's so much more complex than that. It's like everything in one, that we have the capability to do so much in this timeline, since we are all awakening, since we are all like more energetically attuned, we all have the capability to shift our focus to a higher timeline. And something I want to speak of right now as I'm speaking about this is that part of our mission here on Earth at this timeline, and it's not an accident that we decided to be here at the same time, because there were so many other opportunities that we could have come here. But I do want to say that it requires us to be fully present in this 3D reality, in this timeline, because as I like to reference movies, because I like to speak in metaphor, Neo and his friends always had to tune back into the Matrix to change something. Brittany Simone, who is my partner in crime, mentioned that to me. She said, remember, Neo always had to get back into the Matrix to do the shift. And I said, that is so right. Because you can't just like bypass, you can't just go off into the ether, go off into an island and like close yourself off to the world, because we are all connected. Because we are all one, we all have the same energy, we're all part of a collective consciousness. So no matter how much you try to like eject yourself from the matrix or the 3D, or you try to go and hide away, like you are integral in this into this web, into this womb, the matrix womb, that you can't hide. You can't. No matter how much you try, you're just a part of this, especially if you're in this current timeline. So what it's going to take is being fully engaged and present in this timeline, but using your spiritual gifts and your gifts in general. It doesn't have to be spiritual, but I really believe we're all spiritual beings. To give something to the world that is going to um, enlighten this world in some way. And I don't mean to say that to pressure you, or like the world, the fate of the world is in your hands. No, it's all of us together. And that's what I really believe in, Christ consciousness and like the second coming of Christ. And I could say that doing all of my deprogramming work of my Christian faith upbringing, is that the church and the Christian faith made us think that it was like Jesus coming back, right, as a human form. And I don't believe in that at all. It's a consciousness, it's an energy, it's all of us understanding that we take the responsibility within ourselves. We hold the power, each of us together, to change and bring more enlightenment into this world. And that's why the Aquarius energy is so important in all of this, because that is Aquarius energy. It's all of us being radically independent and authentic, But with that comes the collective and humanitarian energy that is Aquarius, which is so important because also a fallacy of capitalism is that we all have to be the same, that we all have to follow the same life path, and that we all have to dim ourselves down and just like follow a very authoritative one person that holds the power. And another thing I'll say about the toxic traits of Capricorn, which I've been thinking about a lot, and a lot of people that comment on my TikTok say, well, we are the ones being controlled and the 1% have the power. And I do believe in that, but I also believe that they do because we give them the power, whereas really the power is on us. There's more of us than there are of them. It's 99% versus the 1%. Yes, the 1% has the wealth and the power, but it's only because we give them the wealth and the power. So if we take responsibility and take back that power, tiger energy, then they wouldn't have the power. And that goes so like that goes so material realm, as in like I know everybody has a different level of, I guess, readiness to let go of Amazon. I got rid of Amazon in 2019 because that is how I'm able to not give corporations and Jeff Bezos all of my power, is through my dollars, my spending dollars. Yes, it's annoying because I have to wait longer to get things. Yes, it's annoying because sometimes I can't find the thing that I'm looking for because of the monopoly that Amazon has, and that it literally controls so many things. And there's some things that I want to watch on Amazon Prime that I'm like, fuck, you know? But also, I have to ask myself, with my integrity and my values, what do I put value on? You know, Mercury in retrograde, Venus in retrograde in Capricorn. It's like what I put my money and time towards is what I truly value. And so it could be as simple as that, like a decision like that. And other life changes that are so difficult, like what you like feel like is so hard to let go of, but then you have to really ask yourself, like, why am I holding on to this? Is it really serving me and the planet? So maybe those are some questions you can ask yourself during this time. Now, lastly, I wanted to talk about the North Node moving into Taurus and the South Node moving into Scorpio. Um, and that's happening exactly on January 18th, so the day after the full moon in Cancer. And the day after that, January 19th, is when the sun goes into Aquarius. So between January 14th, when Mercury goes retrograde, to then the 16th, the Sun will conjunct Pluto. The 18th, Uranus will also go direct, and the 19th, the Sun will enter Aquarius. Those couple of days is a huge energetic shift. And I feel this energetic shift very, very deeply because the nodes of the moon are moving from Gemini to Taurus to Sagittarius to Scorpio. And I personally am, and I'm projecting here, um, just because, as you all know, like Sagittarius and Gemini, the mutable signs are in my angular houses, and the angular houses are the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th, which are the major like areas of your life. Um, I'm projecting, but I'm actually looking forward to seeing how the North Node in Taurus will activate some of this pleasure activism that I spoke about. Taurus is a very pleasure seeking sign. It's all about joy and like luxury and eating. Taurus rules the mouth and the throat. It rules like all the things in life that like are worth living for. I only have Chiron in Taurus, but I don't have anything else in Taurus. So this is not an energy that like I super resonate with, even though I want more of it in my life. So I'm really looking forward to what that looks like for me. And then the South Node is in Scorpio, which is basically our sex organs, like all of the um, like the stuff that needs to be excreted, like poop. um, so the Scorpio is like what we don't see. It's the underworld, it's the roots, like I was mentioning, and Taurus is like what we do see, like the material realm. It's an earth sign. So Taurus is a fixed earth sign, Scorpio is a fixed water sign. Taurus is the archetype is the bull. Scorpio, the archetype is the Scorpio, but also it's also associated with the snake, it's associated with the phoenix, and I think the eagle. I really do believe that these nodes moving into these energies of, so these are just some topics of money. Taurus and Scorpio both talk about money because they rule the second house and the eighth house. Taurus rules the second, Scorpio rules the eighth. Talks about energetic exchange and what that means, other people's resources versus my resources, value, worth, um, shared resources is Scorpio. It rules the eighth house. Scorpio in the eighth house also rules like the occult and mysticism. So, with the South Node being in Scorpio and also Jupiter being in Pisces, and with the Jupiter Neptune conjunction on April 10th, I'm wondering if there's going to be a surge of people interested in spirituality, mysticism, and occult, and things like astrology and tarot and all things mystical, which I'm super excited about. Um, so these topics are going to be coming up more and more, and you want to see where the North Node in Taurus is in your personal natal chart, and also where the South Node is in your personal natal chart, because you're going to be increasing more of the Taurus and releasing the Scorpio. Everybody that I've ever heard talk about the South Node, including myself, associate the South Node with like doom and gloom. And I think I was projecting a lot of my own experiences just because it just felt like, but that's only because it was in such a specific area of my life, my first house. And I do have to say that feeling the like the ego death and almost like the dark night of the soul energy with that really was necessary. And also I would not trade it with anything in the world. I would not like want to numb my experience from that. I'm so glad that I went through that sober, and I'm so glad that I have such awareness of it, because the lessons that I've learned through that entire 18 months, almost 2 years, was such a deep spiritual understanding, because the South Node is a very spiritual space. It's like when the material realm and when things like outside of yourself are either taken away, like really, like, or metaphorically, it's like you're focused to see the truth within yourself and what you're really made of. And I would not trade that for the world. It was like the perfect imperfect transit going through a lot of my belief systems, Sagittarius, a lot of what I thought to be true that I had to question, um, a lot of like my religious beliefs that I've had to kind of like ask myself, like, do I even believe in that anymore? Um, and just like a lot of beliefs about myself that I've had to, and ready I was ready to let go of all that stuff to help me to up level my experience here in, I'm turning 40 this year. The next 40 years of my life, the next 20 years of my life. And yeah, this is a big year for me, 2022. I don't think I've shared that yet. I'm turning 40, so I'm starting a new decade. It's crazy to think, because 10 years ago, I was starting my 30s during my Saturn return. And the 30s for me were, whew, the biggest change of my entire life, obviously. But I'm really excited about the 40s, because four is like a very grounded energy. 40 is a very significant number for me. I also write that. I also write about that in my book. Venus retrograde lasts for 40 days. In Kundalini Yoga, we practice a Kriya for 40 days, because 40 is the enough time. Well, I don't know if that's enough time, but it's the time when a significant amount of change can happen and transformation. So 40 is like, I'm really excited to see what this year entails for me and starting a new decade off with Jupiter in Pisces and also with the year of the tiger. It feels really good and grounded to me. I hope I spoke enough about the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio. I think the main message that I wanted to convey is like the topics and the content around that. We'll speak more about that in the coming months. And I'm sure the astrologers or people who have knowledge of astrology that are going to be on the podcast will speak more to that as well. And last but not least, I wanted to just pull a couple cards for us. And I think I've been talking for a really long time already, so I don't want to make this any longer than I already have. But I think overall, I wanted to share with you the things that have been going on in my life and what's been going on in my psyche, how I've been moving through Capricorn season, Jupiter in Pisces, the Capricorn and Cancer axes, the full moon in Cancer, and the pattern that I noticed between the full moons and the new moons, the Mercury retrograde, letting go of the past, having spiritual tools, the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio, and any other things that I spoke about during that time. Um, and then Aquarius season, Aquarius being a very I love Aquarius season because it will activate my moon and my Venus in my third house. And I always find that time for me where I connect with soul family. Um, so I'm really excited about that. So I want to pull, so okay, another thing I wanted to say, sorry. When Venus and Pluto were conjunct at the exact degree, I forget, I think 25 degrees in December, um, I felt so compelled to buy a bunch of decks. And what I mean by decks, I mean I bought tarot and oracle decks. And I noticed that I have that impulse of like I need to get this and I can only think about that one thing. And Venus and Pluto have that energy of like that pull. And I found it so interesting because it is in my second house of like money and values, and Venus and Pluto have that like attractive quality. And I don't know why it was tarot cards and oracle cards. And I'm glad they will serve a use on the podcast and on my YouTube channel and on my personal readings as well. But it was so crazy and odd because I bought seven. It just speaks to like the magnetism of Pluto and Venus together and like the extremes that it can go through. But I bought seven, and every day a new one would come in the mail, and my mom would be like, "Another Oracle deck? Are you crazy?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just like couldn't help myself." I bought seven, and the one that I just showed you is my favorite tarot deck so far, the Muse Tarot by Chris Ann. Um, and then I just bought this one, and I had the author of this deck on my podcast, Christina Farrell, um, the Celestial Bodies deck. I think you remember that podcast episode, but I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. This was on my Christmas wish list, but oh my god, I'm gonna have to show you at another time. So the ones that I'm pulling from now is Denise Lynn's Sacred Destiny Oracle. So we're gonna ask for one. I love this deck because there's one word, and I've been using this to ask of like the intention. So when I pulled this for myself, the word was success. So we'll pull for the collective. And then the next one is The Sacred Self Care Oracle by Jill Pyle. And I love this because it is about self care. And I feel like That is the energy that all of us collectively need to be in at this moment. So I will describe the card for you for the podcast listeners. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see the card and like really hone in on the image. Okay, so let me just tune into the energies. For the collective of Awaken and Align, please show us the word, the intention that you want all of us to focus on. By the way, when I was like speaking before, my right ear popped, like the pressure changed, and now it hasn't popped back. Whew. What is the intention that you want all of us to focus on? What is the intention, the collective intention that you want all of us to focus on, or that we are being called to focus on? Spirit, ancient ancestors, guides, thank you for being here with us. And as you're listening to this, you can ask yourself, what is your intention for this year, 2022? What is your word? We have illumination. So this card has this like very foggy, very misty. I see a crescent moon here on the side. The colors are green, gray. It's very Neptune and Pisces energy. It's very foggy. So I think that was what we were speaking about, like illumination, being awakened. Apocalypsis means to unveil something, to see something very clearly. Oh, sorry about that. So illumination is the word, and then you can ask yourself for yourself, like, what is your word? What is your intention for 2022? The word that I got out of here was success, like I said, but my overall word is to be in alignment, is to go with my feeling, my intuition, being in alignment with like my mind, my body, and my soul. Okay. And I'll pull a couple of these. What are the self-care? What self-care can we use for this time, Spirit? Being more in like the yin expression of Capricorn, of like being receptive. It's like more of the crone energy versus like the old daddy energy. And I feel like that crone energy is something that we don't get to experience enough in American culture. And obviously I have listeners from all over the world, but I can only speak to the American experience. But it's like the elders, you know, like in all different cultures, they really do. I just watched the movie Encanto, which is a Disney movie. And like those movies always show me different cultures, like specifically in Latin cultures and Asian cultures, actually most cultures outside of Western cultures, the matriarch, the grandmother, is usually like the head of the household, like the crone energy, very wise. Okay, the first one that came out is family. Family, like I was saying, Cancer energy. And family doesn't have to be your blood family, but your chosen family, like your soul family. But it's two figures hugging. It's number 23. And then we have build strength, number 6, another 6. Build strength. This person looks like they're boxing with their third eye like wide open. So maybe you want to do some movement exercise, like I was saying in the beginning. Try the class for a month for free 99. Ooh, okay. Ooh. Then we have aromatherapy with number 3. This is very Taurus, very in the senses, like smell, touch, and then we have spend time with animals. This is very Taurus energy too, 48. I love this. So for self-care, you're being called to spend time with family, feel nurtured, feel safe, building strength, do some movement exercises, embodiment work, aromatherapy, work with herbs, the smelling, like the I forgot what clair that is when you smell, but that might be significant for some of you. And then we have spend time with animals. Okay, beautiful souls, I think I'm going to end it here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And I just send you so much love and blessings your way. Have a beautiful Capricorn season, Mercury retrograde, Venus retrograde, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.